Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Ayan Khalid, and welcome to my channel where Ayan reflects. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Before I get into the topic, I look at this side because I have some notes, and when I'm mentioning some references in this video, especially from the Qur'an or Hadith or somewhere else, or any reference at all, scientific reference from maybe NASA, I don't want to be really wrong and inaccurate about it and word something incorrectly. And I apologize for any mistakes if I make any. Let's get into it. So, I grew up in a Muslim household, right? And I assume some of the people watching this must have been like growing up in a Muslim household, or you are growing up, or you're interested in Islam, and you will hear a lot of stories about the Prophet, about the Quran, about some tales in the Quran. And honestly, some of them sounded like fairy tales. You know, like those kind of things where your grandparents are telling you to sleep. And at a young age, especially for myself, and I would say kind of for the general population as well, we overlooked it. We didn't like take it that seriously. Just thought they were like just stories meant for a moral lesson, to believe in God, which they were, you know. But the descriptions of those stories are so specific in the Quran, which you cannot just overlook them. And I'm grateful to Allah that He didn't seal my heart. If you actually read the Quran, Allah continuously mentions about sealing people's heart. One of the worst punishments, I believe, a person can have is when their heart is sealed and they cannot accept knowledge from Allah. And He didn't seal my heart. He left me with questions deep inside my subconscious, which I was still overlooking, but internally I was thinking about them. And I was like, why are they mentioned? My main question, why are these stories so descriptive? Like they're so specific and precise. And why do they keep coming back in the Quran again and again? Any type of thing which is like a kind of an amazing fact keeps coming back in the Quran. And it also asks you to think. Also continuously says this is science for people who reason. The person who's reading this should think about this. This is science for people who reason. It's literally saying to you that you should go around the world, see for science as well, ponder over creation. And truly, that's the only way you would really fall in love with the Creator, if you know the creation very well. And as I grew older, I was studying science in school. I was interested in physics, chemistry, biology. I used to teach biology at some point in my school. Eventually, pursued biomedical engineering a little bit. But now I have a completely different career, which I don't want to keep in this video, of course. But through the process, I kind of understood, science, and my interest in it always remains. Still in my free time, all the time I'm studying, I'm researching, and I'm now looking at it from a perspective where I derive my analogies or my learnings from the Quran, because I think the Quran will mention the things necessary for humankind to know about science. And a lot of the things we're just catching up with the Quran right now. These things were mentioned 1400 years ago. If any were to debate Quran is like being changed or anything, we have carbon dated manuscripts. So, hold yourself back. And for Quran and Hadith as well, they're very authentic. They're fully authentic, actually. It's so surprising that how the Quran really condenses these complex scientific phenomenons into simplified linguistic knowledge. I feel like even today, nowadays, it would be very hard for people to do it in a short sentence, which would address population of people across hundreds or thousands of years in the same way it does in one reality of those centuries or those years. If you get what I mean, I don't want to sound I think I sound very complicated, but anyways, hopefully you get what I mean. And there's another culture in Muslim societies that you kind of fear knowledge. I feel like I've always been taught like science is here, religion is there, a lot of propaganda going around that. And it's not true, because if you look at the history, a lot of successful Muslim scientists, like Muslims laid a huge foundation in modern science, right? In anatomy and biology and astronomy, all these things, right? Mathematics, algebra, all that stuff. So these people who were doing these innovations in the science field, they studied mathematics, they studied medicine, they studied astronomy, physics, business, finance, and religion, and they derived their knowledge, a lot of it, from religion. They were strong in their faith. That's how I think in nowadays scientists, if you were to actually read the Quran and then like read between the lines and try to get information from there, that will be way easier for you to come up with discoveries. Quran Hadith. What got me interested is stuff like the mention of black holes in the Quran. I made a video on this, so you can go and watch that. And that was my research and understanding on where it's mentioned, and it's in the story of where Zulqarnain travels to the place where sun sets, and that place like sun doesn't really set anywhere in this world. A lot of scholarly opinion is like a little bit weird, didn't really make sense to me. So that one makes the complete sense based on the description of the ayat in the Quran. So I really recommend you go and watch that. And then he went to the nebula, which is like kind of like a teaser. But yeah, when I watch that, I'm going to make more videos on that as well. But today, what we're going to talk about is something different, another scientific phenomenon. It's called nitrogen fixation. I'll first go over the Quran, then we'll get deeper into the scientific explanation on how it mentions this process in the Quran so vividly and so much of like in an easy way, simple language compared to what it really is. Hopefully, I don't confuse many people. And anyways, this is for people who are seeking more knowledge. So I hope you enjoy. Let's get into it. The Quran, what it actually says about this process. In Surah Ar-Ra'd, which is chapter 13, I believe, verse number 12, says, "It is He who shows you the lightning, causing fear and hope, and generates the heavy cloud." Today, I'm not going to speak about the heavy cloud, okay? But let's go to the next verse, Surah Ar-Rum, verse 24. "And of his signs is that he shows you lightning, causing fear and hope, and sends down rain from the sky, by which he brings the earth to life after its lifelessness. Indeed, in that are signs for people who use reason." Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 164. "And he sends down rain from the sky and gives life thereby to earth after its lifelessness." Surah Al-Hadid, verse number 17. "Know that Allah gives life to the earth after its lifelessness. We have made clear to you the signs. Perhaps you will understand." This is fascinating to me, knowing the descriptions of it. Now, a lot of people like just overlook them. They're like, okay, yeah, brain brings you this life. But put it in perspective from 1400 years ago, more than 1400 years ago, man who doesn't read and write, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, telling people this, or like, getting this revelation, and how these people, like how much of a strong faith they had. And definitely their faith was so strong because they were seeing miracles in place, and they were definitely be like, okay, this is the real truth. This is the messenger of Allah. So their faith was very strong. But in the period, like afterwards, the whole 1400 years, Muslims who didn't know that rain will give life to earth and what science behind it is. Why is lightning and rain directly linked to the revival of earth? Now we know this. How strong of faith people had. And it's described that this revival is described as a sign for those who actually reason. So there's definitely more context behind these simple words, which seemingly look like simple words. So now let's get into science and what it actually says about this process. The nitrogen is an element which is inside our atmosphere. If you studied environment, like science in school, basic science, you know that nitrogen is 78% of the atmosphere. So with the air I'm breathing, 78% of this air is formed of nitrogen. Fun fact for you if you didn't know. Now, nitrogen in this air cannot be directly used by plants, for example, to grow or to form. This nitrogen has to be used in a more reactive state, must be fixed into usable forms, okay? And it's more stable because it exists as two molecules or two atoms of nitrogen together, right? So it's N2. If you study that in school, N2, nitrogen exists in two parts together. So it's more stable. Now, for it to be usable, it has to be in a different form. It has to be in the form of like a nitrate, which is like nitrogen oxide, something like that. It has a charge on it, right? It's like the plus and minus sign of the battery, where it's kind of become usable. I guess that's one analogy I can make. Or ammonia, right? Nitrogen and hydrogen mixed together, right? Now, without nitrogen fixation, which is this process to make the N2 into this nitrogen oxide or ammonia or something, there cannot be any plant growth. So if I just put nitrogen on the ground as N2, it would not then nothing would happen. It's like putting a rock, pretty much, I would say, if it were to be physically present, and there would be no protein, no life. And in order to form protein, you need to have nitrogen, by the way. So no protein synthesis, amino acids, and all this stuff requires nitrogen. I'm not going to go deeper into why and all the process on that, but let's continue on the lightning side. Why is the lightning mixed with the rain here? Like, why is it mentioned in the same verse? Now, lightning's scientific role, it can reach up to temperatures of 30,000 degrees Celsius, which is hotter than the sun's surface, by the way, right? And that energy that it produces, this N2 has to be broken down, and it needs extreme amount of energy to be broken down. That energy, which is hotter than the sun's surface points, reaches that temperature, that breaks that strong bond between N2, strong triple bond between nitrogen, N2. This allows the nitrogen to be free as one atom or particle, right, molecules. And then this reacts with oxygen in the air. Air has oxygen as well, right? This is in our atmosphere. And this forms nitrogen oxides. Now, nitrogen oxide can then be dissolved in the rain, which comes after. Once the nitrogen oxide is dissolved in the rain carries these nitrates into the soil, and the soil then becomes fertile. It becomes alive again. So if it was not lifeless, as mentioned in the Qur'an, that it gives life to the lifeless soil, it becomes fertile and alive again due to this process. And then from here, plants can grow, use this fertility, use the nitrates to carry the protein synthesis process, to form protein. Because eventually, us and every being out there needs like protein synthesis is our basis. Like that's how we're formed, pretty much. And this whole process is called atmospheric nitrogen fixation. Obviously, the Quran doesn't say it like that, but it says it in a very fascinating way. Right? So let me just reiterate the verse here. And of his signs is that he shows you lightning, causing fear and hope, and sends down rain from the sky, by which he brings the earth to life after its lifelessness. Indeed, in that are signs for a people who use reason. Amazing. SubhanAllah. It literally gives me goosebumps every single time. Like I have goosebumps right now. I don't know if the camera's gonna show me, but it's insane to me. Now, historically, if you look at it, in the 7th century, the people used to think that the rain is like only water only. And they did not know the soil's fertility depends on invisible chemical processes going in the atmosphere and all these things. Nitrogen is essential for protein. They didn't know that, right? Lightning is chemically alters the atmosphere. They didn't know any of these things. Yet this whole time, the people who are reading Quran, imagine them reading the Quran every single time, and they just overlook this fact that this is also another discovery. Like we're probably overlooking some other facts in the Quran right now. I 100% believe in that. These verses link lightning directly to, like, mentions with the rain. It links lightning to life, not just rain, not just fear, not just like you should fear a Lord, or but also the revival of the earth. And this is 100% scientifically accurate. It just comes to me with more reasons on why this is the truth, for me to have a more better reason, like a more stronger link in my faith between God and all these processes. Basically, to put it in simple, I'm like speechless whenever I learn these things. And it gives me another reason to follow the full commandments of God, a reason to perform my prayers on time, perform my prayer with passion, that I'm talking to a Lord, to a creator whose creation is so perfect. Like These processes happen every single day. Probably right now, there's somewhere rain happening, somewhere lightning is happening, and this whole process is being conducted with perfect, uh, systems in place, and we just overlook these blessings of Allah, and we are quite unthankful of these things, right? For me, this indirectly helps me to leave music. For me, it indirectly helps me to be better at the prayers, to memorize Quran more, to be better reciter, to be having better character towards other people, be more patient with life, and enjoying the revelation in the Quran, having more interest in it as well. Eventually, when the Quran is linking all these things and it's pointing to a real process, it makes you stop and ponder over other things as well. And you see, this is just not poetry. Like Quran is just not poetry, and that's why the Quran continuously, Allah continuously, in a pattern, asks you for. This is like science for people who use reason. It's not for people who are blind, who blindly believe. Not for people who mock, who don't think, but it's for people who actually think and ponder. And it's safe to question things without breaking the rules of halal and haram. Of course, there's a lot of liberalism going on, but I'm not going to go into that much. The Quran doesn't name atoms or molecules and nitrogen and all that. It doesn't need to. It describes reality in a way that just stays true across time, across time. Whether you lived 1400 years ago or you're learning science today, it stays true. For me, this was never about proving science with religion. It was more like realizing that Quran never contradicts our reality, and we just keep discovering more things from it, and maybe we should just spend more time with it so we can continue to be closer to Allah, because that's the reason we were created, to worship Allah. And this is one way of worshiping Allah, and one of the best ways, I believe, because it brings people closer in practice as well, especially for people who are more knowledgeable on the science aspect or interested. And I recommend everyone to be interested, because everyone has to be interested with the creation, and that's officially how you're going to respect the creator. So if I really like this water bottle, and I'm going to look into the water bottle, how it was created, how intricate the details are, I will respect the creator way more. Or I mean, Allah doesn't need my respect, but astaghfirullah, but I'm going to believe more that someone actually created this. They actually put a lot of detail into this creation, and which will make my faith more stronger. Just one sign. We're going to talk about so many. There's like endless signs, and somewhere in between, we're going to come up with more interesting facts which you might have not heard about. Today, I just wanted to mention one small one. Maybe you've heard of it before or not, but if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and share this with your family members or other people who might be interested in Islam, and spread the message that this is quite a fascinating knowledge. And with that, I'm going to go continue my reflection process, and I'll speak to you next time. Assalamu alaikum.